Hello everyone, it's William from Holistic Songwriting. How are you guys doing? Welcome to this little thing that I'm doing where I'm answering questions live, I guess. Live! Alright, so let's look into the chat and see who's already online. And it's looking great because this says this video is unavailable. So I already fucked something up. This is just perfect, isn't it? It's just perfect. So let me see if I can fix this. I need to copy something somewhere. Let's see. How are you guys doing? You good? Wait, one more second. And I should have it immediately. This. There we go. See, that's much better. How are you guys doing? Is everything okay? Can you see and hear me okay? Hello. Matt Burrell Vivo says first. Well, congratulations. And I already made a really bad joke by saying, welcome, Matt. Bet you hear that one every day, huh? Why did you cut your hair? I don't know. It will forever stay a mystery, I guess. Guys, before we start with the Q&A, I have one more thing I want to mention. And that is why the artist series is taking so long, because there is a good reason for it. The episode is actually done. I'm really happy with it. It's gonna be on Drake, which I can now finally reveal, because it's about to come out, like, very, very soon. I'm just waiting on a certain platform to finally release one of my products, because you may have noticed that I've kind of been gone for a couple of months. I've been working on a project, which I now want to reveal on this live Q&A, and that is the second edition of the Addiction Formula. And because I have been approached by a producer, an audio award-winning producer, that is, actually, so that's kind of sweet. And she read the Addiction Formula, and she really liked it. And she said, like, hey, why don't you make an audiobook version of this? And since I've always wanted to do that, I'm a big fan of audiobooks myself and listen to them pretty much every day. And I wanted to do that from the beginning myself, but I said, like, you know, if you have a professional on board, that would obviously even better. And if it's a fan, someone who's read my books and liked the stuff, that's even better. So obviously I said yes. And so we produced this whole audiobook together. I went over the entire book again, made an entirely new version. I rewrote the whole thing. Not the whole thing, but I rewrote most of it. I, went through it all again. Added a bonus chapter. There's a bunch of new techniques, because a bunch of things have happened in the past 2 years, technique-wise, that have to do with the Addiction Formula. It's more relevant than ever, I think, especially implied tension, which was sort of like a little bit of a smaller thing in the first version, is now becoming a bigger and bigger thing, especially with Taylor Swift's new stuff. And, so many bands, like Max Martin's new style is really all about implied tension. So I felt it was necessary to update the whole thing and to kind of bring it up to speed. And so it's coming out very shortly. What are we waiting for? We're waiting for Audible to finally release it on the website. And I don't know when that's going to be exactly. So it could be tomorrow. It could be in a week. If we're really unlucky, it could be in 30 days. And why is that important for the artist series? Well, in the artist series, that was supposed to be my release video, right? In that video, I kind of say, like, hey, if you want to get it, you can get it right here. So that's why I'm still waiting with that. And sorry that it's taking so long. But I guess that's just how it's got to be. Anyways, that was it for me. Now let's hear from you guys. Love your hoodie. Hello from Vienna. Well, thank you, Wikipedia. Yes, it's the official Holistic Songwriting Academy hoodie. Cool. I look like Scott Foley with a beard, apparently. Antonio Grifoni says, hey, bro, I love the channel. Can I send you a song I wrote and tell him what you think? Yes, you can. For that, you have to look for personalized songwriting feedback on, just Google it, personalized songwriting feedback, holistic songwriting, and you're going to find the page that allows you to do that, to submit your songs. Okay, Soul Rhythm says, could you explain how rappers come up with melodies for beats? Is it just humming it out or glottal stops? Oh, gotcha. where are these so-called pockets people talk about but don't explain? The reason they don't explain it is that it's hard to explain. It's like saying, what's a good melody? It's just a really difficult question to answer, because if you say, well, it's this, then, I could probably give you 100 examples of a case where that's not the case. I think what's closest to the truth when it comes to melody writing and that kind of thing is that there's several approaches that all work. And there's not one thing that makes something sound good. But there are several approaches that you can use, and each of them is going to give you a good result if you make it work. That's, of course, the requirement for everything. So as far as I know, a lot of it is based on just rapping, and sometimes they just find like a flow of words that just works nicely, and they turn that into, they kind of just repeat that over and over again, and then a melody sort of evolves from that by itself. Because, as you know, text has, like when we just speak to each other, that already has a melody, right? When I'm speaking to you, I already have that melody, right? And if you do that, if you repeat certain words over and over again, the melody of the word becomes more noticeable, and the meaning of the word, because we've heard it so many times already, sort of wanders into the background. And so what I sometimes like to do is, if I have a line that I really like, I'll just read it to myself over and over again, and maybe with alterations, like I'll slightly alter it. Actually, I'll do that all the time. I'll figure out different ways of saying it. And after a while, usually, a melody kind of emerges that works really well for hip-hop. I mean, this is totally different than how I work in pop music, but for hip-hop, that's what I found works really well for me. Is there was this... there's a bunch of songs where you can really tell that it was written like that. Oh man, I'm trying to think of the titles right now. But I just recently listened to a bunch of hip-hop songs that pretty much did exactly that. Well, Yeah by Usher is one of those songs, I think. That kind of sounds like it could have been written that way. I think that would probably make sense. So, yeah, that's something I would definitely experiment with, to just like pick one or two words, or maybe a line even, and then just keep repeating those in different rhythms and feel out like where it wants to go, All right. Azad Shazed, that's a really beautiful name, by the way. Shazed, that sounds really cool. Says, where can we purchase it and how much is it? The audiobook? I forgot what the USP is. The selling price is. I totally forgot. But it's something around $30, something like that. And it's going to be on Audible and on iTunes and pretty much all the major distributors. Matthew Burrell says, how did your love for music start? Bryan Adams would probably be my answer. I was on vacation, heard this song that like a friend of mine was playing, like another guest at the hotel and my age was playing this song, and it was something with I Wanna. That's all I remembered from that song. And so that kid left. I had no idea what that song was called or who the artist was. And so I asked the owner of the hotel, do you know a song that's called I Wanna? And he said, it's probably Bryan Adams. Or I think he might even have said some other name. But anyways, like that eventually got me to buy, with my mom, we went to the store and bought a Bryan Adams album, and I totally fell in love. And like my childhood was all about Bryan Adams. So I listened to a lot of those records, and I listened to them over and over again, even though I didn't understand a word because my English wasn't there yet at all. Like I didn't speak any English. I just really fell in love with the songs, and I mean, back in the day, that's something I find really sad actually about today's generation, is that it's such a single generation. We don't listen to albums anymore, that we kind of lose that depth with songs. Back in the day, I had maybe 3 or 4 albums, so I would listen to those day after day on repeat. I would listen to those songs 1,000 times. Seriously, my favorite songs, my favorite records of all time, I've listened to over 1,000 times, and I know them inside out. And that really gives you a completely different kind of appreciation for songs. And it also forces you to listen to songs that you don't usually... I've listened to so many albums that I didn't like at first, and then I kept listening to them because there was just nothing else there. I didn't have any other music, so I just listened to that over and over again. And at some point, you just sort of fall in love with it. At some point, you're like, but this has got something. Something's cool about this. And it was the case with a lot of bands that are now my favorite bands. You know, Tool, for example, was a band that I really didn't like in the beginning, but I found them fascinating. And I had bought the album, and I was like, well, I'm not going to buy something and not listen to it. So, you know, after maybe 10 listens or so, I was like 10 times listening through the whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, there is something to this. And that's when I slowly like began to like get into this world. And some albums just take a little bit longer. And I think it's a great way of improving your songwriting is to really pick a couple of albums that you like or maybe even dislike and listen to them over and over again to really get what they're about and to really analyze the writing. I think that's so much more valuable than listening to a single a couple of times and just listening for the bass drum or just listening to how it was arranged, because it really gives you a deeper understanding of how music works. And I really believe that's where all my knowledge of analyzing music really comes from, is from really listening deep to songs. So I think that's where my love for music comes from. I mean, it also comes from writing music, obviously. One more thing is in school, I was kind of the underdog, and I was bullied a lot in school. So based on my name, because that name is ridiculous even in Germany. And so music was kind of a way out of that for me, because like that started my counter, my counter movement against everything that was going on at the school. So it gave me like my own voice all of a sudden. Like that was the first time I really had a thing that was me, like everything else was just like, it's, it was always about everyone else, I felt, and was really the underdog trying to like keep it together. And music just really, it gave me a voice. Writing was my way of surviving through high school. It's probably a better answer than the first. Okay. John Thompson writes, sorry for the caps, I had to stand out, lol. What would you say is the best online resource for learning composition techniques? Holistic songwriting, obviously. Learn composition techniques. Do you mean like classical composition or pop composition? Like for pop music, I haven't really found anything that I really like. That's what I'm trying to do with holistic songwriting, is because I feel there's nothing really good out there. There's a couple that are good, like Hit Songs Deconstructed, I find is pretty good. They're doing a really good job, but it's either like Hit Songs Deconstructed is about analyzing music, and it's not about writing music. So that's what's kind of bothering me about that, because I don't want to just know how The Weeknd does it. I want to know how I can do that myself. So what I try to focus on with my videos and also the artist series, and especially the courses, is just the creative part of it, because I think that's ultimately so much more rewarding. Meow Wing Aldrin says, it's late at night here in the Philippines and I stayed this late just to watch this live. That's so cool. Thank you so much. Do you think staying in one genre in my songwriting is a good idea? I think so. It depends a little bit. Are you going to write for yourself, or are you going to write for other people? If you write for others, both might make sense. They both have their pros and cons. If you're writing for yourself, so if you're the artist, then I think it definitely makes sense to stay within one genre, because you want people to know you for that style, right? If you're writing for others, you could either see yourself as a jack of all trades, which is a little bit harder to get through in the industry, but if you're good at it, you can still make it work. But it's always easier if you just, that guy, like that people can call if they need, I don't know, Spanish, whatever, rumba songs. They know, like, that's the guy. Meowing Aldrin is my guy for German hardcore Schlager with strings and bagpipes. Azad Shized says, did you study music to get all of this knowledge? Yes and no. I did. I have a Bachelor of Music from the Netherlands, and I studied for 6 years. So that was definitely a big part of the theory knowledge and all of that stuff. But I still feel like I learned the most before I started studying, when I was just writing for myself. And I was just experimenting with different arrangements, different songs, different instruments, writing for different instruments. I think that's really when I learned the most about songwriting, because that's the part that makes you, If you learn music theory, or like how other people, if you listen too much to other people, you might even lose your style a little bit. And it was nice that I had already formed my own style. I already had my sound when I went into conservatory. And then everything that people told me, I could see a little bit from, was able to step outside of myself and say like, okay, well, he says this, but you like to do this. well, so maybe this is advice that's just not for me, you know. But if you're just finding yourself, it's really difficult to say no to certain pieces of advice. So I think conservatory was a great place to meet people, and it was a great atmosphere. I was very lucky to study at a really great conservatory, and I enjoyed my experience there immensely, and I learned a lot of things. But finding myself and becoming a good musician, I don't think was one of them, is my opinion. All right. Dovidas says current trend in songwriting is very grandiose, with sense of large space and epic chorus. Do you think it will revert in 2020 like the 1920s epicness reverted into 1990s dry grunge with no reverb? Um, well, I mean, I can only guess. I can't say for sure, but why I read this question is that epic choruses is really something I see going away. Like that's kind of starting right now. If you look at, especially Max Martin, because he's always like kind of the ringleader when it comes to trends, and the American sound that is. Like you know, it's different all around the world, but the American sound I feel is really going away from those big epic choruses at the moment. Which is funny because Max Martin was the guy who started that all with his because he was a metal writer, right? He was a singer in a band, in a metal band, and he brought that idea from metal music with these big grandiose choruses to pop music. That was basically his influence, or a lot of it was. And so what he's doing right now is with the new Taylor Swift album, and then Katy Perry just did Swish Swish, which is also like that. It has these really tiny choruses, and so that's a lot of implied tension, which I talk about in the addiction formula as well. So that's kind of I think where things are going right now. I'm not sure if it's gonna stick, but it's certainly like a big influence that's hitting us in pop music at the moment. Ah shit, it jumped again. Okay. What do you think about atonal music? Says Pavel 1915. Depends. I like certain pieces. Um, Gosh, what was that one called? I like some. Jesus, what was it called? Like all those German composers, and I haven't listened to it in so long. Um, there's one that's called. Oh man, I just can't remember the names, but there's a couple of pieces that I really do like, but they're usually those pieces that are meant like it's those pieces where you can tell the composer wanted to write something beautiful, he just wanted to make it atonal as well. Those are my favorite pieces. I don't like personally don't like really like those pieces where you have like the 12 tonal stuff, the dodecaphonic stuff is just a little bit too much for me because it feels too much like it was written from a formula just to prove a point. Like it doesn't feel artistic in a way almost. It feels more like let's see what happens when we do this. And I mean that's important to push music forward and to push it into unknown like push the borders, But it's not something I like listening to. And like there's some really great Schoenberg, but the popular stuff, like popular, I mean the stuff that everyone knows it's usually not for me. And also Jesus Christ, like I can't think of the names right now. Like I'm drawing a blank at the moment. But like, I like some of it. Let's put it like that. How to continue writing songs after a long break, says Utsav Solanki. You just do it, really. You have to get into it. I know what that feels like because I just had to take a little bit of a break from writing songs, and I have to get back into it right now. And what's really helping me is this thing right here, the Ableton Push, which is just a new way for me of writing music because I've never written it with a piece of hardware. It was always software in the computer, and this is like a way for me to change things up a little bit. And it's kind of, it's a new way of writing songs for me. Like it gets my creative juices flowing a little bit because it's also different layout. Like this doesn't work like a piano. It's like the layout is completely different because this goes up in fourths. So it's everything's like a big okay. I have to rethink everything that I know about playing music into the computer. So that's kind of helping. So challenge yourself with something a little bit different, try to approach it from a new way, like pick up an instrument that you don't play so well or you've never played before. and just try to get into it with something you haven't really done before. So if it fails, if you then write something bad, at least you can say like, okay, well, this was something I've never done before, so that's all right. So this was just a learning experience. You know what I mean? Pavel 1915 also says, should we put more dissonance in our music? Well, if you want to be commercial, probably not. I see some artists that do that very efficiently, like, you know, Bruno Mars uses like some notes that are kind of out there, and some other artists like Drake, which the new artist series is going to be about, he sometimes picks some notes that are really like really grind against the music, and I really like it. But he does so very deliberately and over a long period of time, like because it's rap, like he will stay on that same note, and he might, you know, he might stay on the flat 6, right, like a note that really rubs against the 5, because there's that flat 9 between the two of them. So he will do something like that, and he will like keep doing that for like a minute, and you're like, it's that sound that you kind of get used to. And that's something you can do in pop music, for if you want to really develop a really unique, aggressive kind of sound. I think it's a good way of doing that is to hit some strange notes, but do it deliberately and over again, so people can get used to that sound. If you just have a melody that's all tonal and then you hit like one really aggressive note, like really something out there, people are going to be like, what was that? Like, I get surprised when I hear that, and not in a good way. But if you can hit that note over and over again and tell people like, I know it's weird, but listen to it again, listen to it again, listen to it again. What do you think? Yeah, it's getting better, right? Because that's how it works. Like if I listen to a chord like, is this on? No, it's not, of course. If I listen to a chord like, you play a C major in the left hand and an F sharp major in the right hand, which is a chord that was used by people like, well, John Williams, obviously, and Stravinsky, is like this really, I mean, there's so much rub in that chord, right? So you got C, E, G, and then you got F sharp, which is under the, just a half step under the G. Then you have the, what did I say? The A sharp, which is also, there's a lot of rub there, and sorry, what did I say? No, it's a B flat and also a G sharp. What did I say? No, it's F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, right? Yeah, of course. So there's just a lot of rub because there's like all these half steps between the notes. And it's a chord that if you play that in a pop song, everyone would be like, whoa, what are you doing? But if you play it by itself a couple of times and you just play chords like that, it develops like a sense of its own. And I use that chord in, if you go on YouTube and you type in Cosmosaurus, like Cosmosaurus, Cosmosaurus. That's a short film that I wrote the music for. It's an orchestral piece, and I use that chord, and I love it. Like in that piece, it definitely works. But that's because I set it up the right way. You know, I lead into it with some dissonance, and like the dissonance slowly builds towards that chord. So when you hear it, it is still very tense, but it doesn't feel out of place. So if you use dissonance in your music, make sure you introduce it the right way. All right. How do you like dirty loops? Have you dissected anything of theirs, says Jovian Tabraham. I haven't dissected anything of theirs because it would be a fairly lengthy project, I think. And it's not something I want to cover myself. I find it very impressive. I really like what they're doing. Certain pieces, not everything. Sometimes I feel like if I listen to too much to it, there comes the point where I'm like, are they just doing this just to sound more crazy? Like they're just trying to put in another really crazy chord progression just to fuck with my head? Is that all they're trying to do, or is there also like a song here? And so I'm kind of on the edge about that. But I find it very impressive what they're doing. And I don't dissect it because it's not something I strive for. I write complicated songs sometimes, but it's always one complicated thing that I package in such a way that everyone can enjoy it. That's my goal for myself, for my own writing. So that's why I haven't really analyzed it. Doesn't mean I don't find it well written or anything like that. All right. How should I try to deliver a specific emotion with a track, says Phoenix Plays? I don't know is the honest answer, because the way I write is, for me, the emotion comes from the song, and then I write a lyric that fits that. For me, it's very seldomly have I written a lyric and had a clear emotion in the lyrics that I had to get across in the music. And in those cases, it was usually just like, oh, this is a sad lyric, this is a happy lyric, this is something sexy. And those things, I know how to portray those in music, or something dreamy, you know, or I don't know, melancholic. I know how to display those things in music. But usually, like the whatever happens in the writing session is what kind of informs me what the emotion of this track is, and I just try to hit that target with my lyrics as well. So that's kind of how I work. But there's a huge array of techniques for expressing emotions. One thing I really like doing is, if you know your scales, like the modes, those are extremely useful for hitting different scales. Because, for example, so Ionian is just this really happy but a little bit bland scale. Dorian has a lot more medieval character, and it just sounds like also has that modal jazz kind of sound. Phrygian, very metal-ish, or folk, you know, it's very dark kind of scale. And all the notes from those scales, if you use those in a melody, it will make that melody sound more like that scale. Therefore, make that melody sound a little bit darker, more like the Middle Ages, or in the case of Mixolydian, sexier, or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Is like using those scales or notes from those scales. That's how I really like doing it. There's also stuff like using certain chords. Like if I want a dreamy atmosphere, I might use something with a major 7, like a major chord with a major 7, or sus chords, suspended chords. There's plenty of that, you know, or like open voicings, like, you know, stack fifths on top of each other, or fourths on top of each other for a little bit more dangerous sound. Gefährlich sound, if you know what I'm talking about. All right. Oh, just jumped again. You should have merch that says "be gefährlich." That's awesome. That's exactly what I was just talking about. Gefährlich means dangerous in German. So that's funny that you just mentioned that a couple of minutes ago, and I was just now talking about it. Wow. John Thompson says, I'm going to have to check out this addiction theory. I haven't heard of it yet. What is it exactly? Just Google addiction formula. That's my book. And as I said, an audiobook version of that is coming out very shortly. So you might want to wait for that, because that's the revised second edition with an extra chapter, etc. Steve Olson says, any advice to write more unique melodies? I tend to just go to the root note without thinking about it. What I love doing is ending my phrases with more colorful notes. Like I love ending phrases on like the 2 or the 4 or the 6, or something that has a lot of color, you know? And also what helps is, instead of just, if you know you're singing the first scalar degree of the scale that you're in, then just try out the second scale degree, you know, and then try out the third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh, until you've tried them all, and then just see which ones create some interesting sound. And I can promise you, in the beginning, you're going to sing a melody against the chord progression. You're like, this is really tense. But after a while, you're going to find something in it. If you keep singing that, and it, you know, comes back to what I said about singing rap melodies, where you just repeat it over and over again, and what I also said about dissonance. You play the dissonance over and over again until you get used to it. And once you find something like that, I think you can really dive deeper into songwriting and find something that is really quite unique and special. And I think ultimately that's what The Weeknd also does, you know, with hitting a 4 on top of like a chord, you know, a minor chord. The fourth scale degree is like something that you wouldn't normally sing. It's not part of the tonic triad, so it's a little bit out there, you know, it's a very colorful note. But the more you sing that note, the more we get used to it, and the prettier it gets, and the more it's out there. You know, it's still extravagant, it's still unique, but it's like, you have to teach us how to listen to that note in a way, you know? That's a lot what songwriting is, I feel. If I'm writing something that is dissonant, or I'm writing some melodies that are more out there, I have to teach you how to listen to that. If I just throw it in front of you and say like, here, listen to this, you're gonna be like, ugh, you know? So I have to like slowly get you there. I have to like hit that note maybe once in the first verse, and then again, and then slowly like build up that trust with you, that you trust me enough for me to show you some more challenging notes. And yeah, it is. I mean, it is a conversation in the end. And if you've listened to The Weeknd, I mean, in almost all of his songs, as I said in the Artist Series video about him, he uses the 4. That's like his favorite note to sing in a one-note melody. And so if you like one song, you're probably going to like a whole lot of other songs as well. But you've gotten used to that sound, so that's what makes his melodies sound a little bit more like The Weeknd, you know. All right. Soul Rhythm says, is there a rule that certain vowels work with certain vowels? Do vowels and letters in the alphabet and their sounds correspond with keys on the piano? Just trying to see how rhythmic talking works. No, I don't. There's no such thing as correspondence between vowels and the keys on the piano. There is, however, such a thing as what I try to do when I write lyrics. The first thing I try to figure out is what are the vowels going to be? Like which vowels sound the best? And usually I just sing bullshit lyrics that don't make any sense on top of like, I kind of know the melody that I want to use. And so it's just sing lyrics that don't make any sense yet. Sometimes they do coincidentally, but that's usually not the case. What I'm mostly looking for is trying to figure out what the vowels have to be. Like, what's my favorite sound here? And the vowels really shape the sound the most. So that's kind of the first thing I do when I write lyrics, is to figure out where those vowels go and which vowels I want to use. As for plosives, there's a bunch of different plosives. There's 6 different kinds. P, T, B, S, D, N, and M, I think. Is that all of them? N and M is not a plosive, is it? It's just like these different... No, it's the different types of consonants. Is that what it is? I forgot. Like there's the plosive, and I forgot. Like they have all these different names, and that's useful for rhyming. Anyways, what I wanted to say is with plosives, I use that a lot for writing lyrics that have like just a continuous flow. Like I just wrote something for the addiction formula, coincidentally, because that also has audio examples in it. That goes, going with the one no melody so you can see the variety when we get there in the next part. You know, and that has a lot of that, just the text itself, even if you don't sing it, it immediately has that rhythm. Going with the one no melody that, you know, that already has that flow baked into it. And so that's what I'm kind of looking for in my consonants and plosives. And then I top that off with a nice vowel at the end. And that's kind of how I think about lyric writing. I'm definitely a songwriter, but lyric writing wise, I really think about it a lot in terms of sound. I'm a sound designer when it comes to lyric writing. Like that's where most of my specifications for my lyrics is like, okay, so here's the sounds that I want for this. How can I puzzle together a lyric that kind of makes sense, that is saying something that goes with my specifications? All right. Joao Gaucho says, any tips to learning to noob learning music producing? I'm actually making a course about that, a music production video course, which is going to release before Christmas. So stay tuned. And that's coming out very shortly. HK says, do you ever feel pressured to write songs that overstate or exploit sexuality rather than leave it open to interpretation? I've never thought about it, so probably no. No, not me personally. I don't write very sexual lyrics, personally, because it's just not a subject that it's just not one of my top themes, I guess. No, and I've never heard anyone talk about that really, like in the industry, from people that I've talked to. So I don't think it's too much of an issue in this industry. I don't think. No, I don't think so. I think most artists that go into this industry kind of know what's expected of them in that regard. I think, like, artists always have to be very open about everything, and so sexuality is a big part of that. Igor Benwire says, do you think releasing an EP is a good idea for a singer-songwriter that only starts off, or is it better to stick to singles? Both. You can release singles and then turn them into an EP. The EP is what you want to sell on your website. Like, you want people to not just buy the one song, because that you almost make no money from that. And they also, which is far more important actually, they don't get to know you through one song. You want them to listen to a couple of your songs so they can fall in love with you. One song is just not enough. Like, new songs come in all the time. We hear new music all the time. So if they just hear one of your songs, they'll have forgotten about you in a year for sure. So that's why an EP is useful for that. If you can sell in the EP, if they listen to 4 of your songs, that's clearly better than if they just listen to 1. And it's also something you can sell to like maybe slowly build upon for the next EP, for the next album. But yeah, I mean, look at the big artists, The Weeknd, Drake. I mean, Drake did mixtapes, but Jhené Aiko, they all did EPs first. And I think it's usually their best work as well. So yeah, I think EPs are great. Just don't do an album. But that's really, I think, a lot of work for nothing, usually. And you can always make an album if you're successful. I'm about to hit 100,000 subscribers. That's true, Dougster. And I have something planned, actually, for that milestone. Like a massive episode that I want to do. Not for the artist series, something slightly different, but I'm excited about it. There's some interesting things that really tie in well with the holistic songwriting concept. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be really cool. Ooh, I always felt that where is that? Oh man, you guys have been writing so much since I like scrolled down last. No, where is it? Great question, Carlos. What did Carlos say? Hi, do you think a songwriter whose native language is not English could possibly succeed in an English-speaking country if they mastered English and, of course, were a unique, great creator? Yes, absolutely. I mean, we see it now with Despacito, which is, I mean, it's the first time that has happened, that a Spanish song has reached #1 in America, pretty much all around the world, I think. So it is possible. It's a little bit more difficult, of course. But, I mean, look at Sweden. They're not native speakers, and they write the most hit songs out there. So, it's definitely possible. But you probably have to look into it to really get it, Like, it's not enough to just know a little bit of English. Like, your English has to be pretty good. Pretty good. And I'm really particular about that as well. Like in the studio, I hate it when a singer has an accent. So I'm constantly like saying like the TH, listen to the TH. It's not a D, it's a TH. Or here, like the difference between hat and head, like, or bed and bat, or bad. Like there's all these, minute little differences that I'm really particular about. So for me, that's really, really important. And I think it helps to go to is that called a speech therapist, or someone who really trains you how to pronounce words correctly? I think is really important. I just remember our English teacher writing the word, what was it? Was it yes? I think he wrote the word yes on the blackboard, and he said, like, pronounce it. And someone said yes, and he said, no, it's not right. Someone said yes, and he's like, no, it's not right. And so a bunch of people said yes, and like he said, like, no, it's just not quite right, like the perfect pronunciation isn't quite there yet. And that really opened my mind up a little bit, thinking like, wow, there's the details matter so much. Someone can tell if I'm German or not just by the way I say the word yes. And I remember very painstakingly when I learned Dutch, when I moved to the Netherlands, and I would walk into a store to try out my Dutch and be like, hey, and they could immediately tell that I was German, and they would respond in German, and that's a really frustrating thing if you just said hey, So yes, I think you have to put a lot of work into it, and it helps to watch TV series to, surround yourself with English. And 90% of my day is English. I talk to my girlfriend, my fiance, in German, obviously, but everything else in my life is English. Talking to you guys, writing courses for holistic songwriting, watching TV shows, listening to audiobooks, reading books, everything in my life is English. I sound like PewDiePie, says Basil. Well, I don't know if I should take that as a compliment. Oh, that's a good argument, actually. Jovian Tabraham says, I can name a few artists like that. Celine Dion, Dirty Loops, Bruno Mars. Tagalog was probably his first language. That's so true. And The Weeknd's first language also isn't English, which I also said in the video. So absolutely true. Yeah, of course. Like there's some of the biggest stars in the industry aren't even like, are they? They're born in America though, so that definitely helps. If you don't live in the States, like me, it's a little bit more difficult. Jelle de Bruyne, which is a Dutch name. I know that because I lived there. Will you ever make series? Will you ever make a series for noobs? You mostly talk to people that are already playing or producing music. I, for example, am very interested in the music, but don't get a lot of what you are saying. Maybe at some point, but really my focus at the moment is I want to target the advanced songwriters because I feel there's so little out there. There's so much stuff for people who are just starting out, and teaching that I find it's very challenging on one side because you have to teach someone how to develop their own thing. So I mean, there's so much stuff out there already for beginners, but so little for people, like me. Like I never felt like I found a school that really helped me. It was always something where I'm like, I read, dozens of books on songwriting just to like maybe get one idea from one of them, and that's really frustrating. So I wanted a website or like a book or something or a course that helped me personally as an advanced songwriter, or that's at least how I see myself, because I feel like that's what's not out there. That's what I want to focus on at the moment. But I don't. Maybe in the future, maybe in a couple of years, once I've written all the stuff that I really am passionate about talking about, all the really advanced stuff that I still want to talk about with you guys, then maybe I can see myself doing that, yes, but not in the near future. Sali Salvatore says, is there music from you anywhere on the internet, some music with your lyrics or something like that? I want to hear it. Yes, just go on YouTube and type in 41 styles in under 7 minutes and you will find it. Also, you can go on friedemann-finneisen.de, which I believe has the same video. And it also has that Cosmosaurus video that I talked about earlier, I think, if I didn't take it down. It's like a really old website, which I didn't update in years. It's super old, but you can find it there. Best DAW a new learning producer should use, says Assad Shezed. Well, if you're just beginning, GarageBand is just fun to play around with. Fruity Loops, those are just great beginner softwares. When it gets to advanced stuff, they're not so great, which is why I don't recommend Fruity Loops for people who are serious about music production. I know a lot of hip-hop producers use it, but it's not a program I would recommend if you want to do anything but hip-hop. GarageBand, I think, is cool because once you get it, if you want to, go to that next level, you can, because you can buy Logic Pro X, which is very similar to GarageBand, only more advanced. So that's why I think GarageBand is great. Also comes free with any MacBook. I think that's really cool. On PC, I like Cubase a lot, and also I hear Studio One is really, really good. I have Studio One 3 actually, but I've just never used it. I bought it on like a Black Friday sale and as an impulse buy, and I never used it, which I'm really embarrassed about still. And also Ableton I really like. It's maybe not the perfect thing to start with. Like I'm trying to wrap my head around it at the moment. I find it a little bit challenging. So maybe not for a beginner, but I really like the software so far. So I think I'm going to keep using it. Yeah. Okay, some people have also seconded Logic Pro X. I really like Logic Pro. It's also really cheap. It's just $100 or something like that at least. Jovian at Abraham says, I'm happy with Pro Tools, but I'm not sure if that's considered a beginner program. I think it's a little icky. Like, I don't like Pro Tools that much. I have it too, and I will sometimes use it for band recordings because for recording stuff and for recording live material, it's the best software that's out there for sure. And for audio editing as well, like everyone says that I've talked to, because that's one of the first questions you always ask, like, what's your software? What do you work in? When two producers meet, and a lot of people work in Pro Tools for the audio. But if you're into MIDI stuff, and I do a lot of MIDI, whether it be synths or any of that, I think the other software is a little bit better. So I don't like Pro Tools in that regard at all. So that's why I personally stay away from Pro Tools. Carlos, I don't think Celine Dion's native language was English. She had always had a very thick French accent, didn't she? I might be wrong about this. I might confuse her with someone else, but I think so. What do you think about John Frusciante? Would love a video about him. Greetings from Argentina says Francisco Domingo, which is a very Argentinian name, I believe. I mean, he's a fantastic guitarist, and I have 3 of their albums of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, not of Frusciante in specifically, but of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I love the Chili Peppers. And people are going to hate me for saying this, I personally always felt like that band was really held back by Anthony, the singer, and I just think his melodies, so the rest of the band, drums, bass, and guitar, are so incredibly good. They're so musical, and they're making amazing music, and I've seen them live. It was just incredible. But and the vocals are fine. They're just, I just feel personally that they can't quite keep up. In terms of the writing, I think he's a really cool character, and he fits the band extremely well. And he wrote some of the greatest melodies out there. It's no question about that. And Californication, or that whole album, I just love that. By the way, absolutely fantastic. I think I just had it with Stadium Arcadium, where it was like, this was such a cool background, and he did something a little bit bland with it. I was a little bit disappointed by that. And yeah, but he's, still amazing musicians, obviously. And I would still, totally work with those guys. Hopefully I didn't burn any bridges by saying that just now. That was probably a little bit stupid. What do you think of Björk? Would you ever do an artist series on her? Says Leah Birkenbach Menaces. I love Björk. I have all of her albums. I'm a big fan. Listen to those albums, on repeat. I think she's a really interesting artist. Very, very interesting artist. Also, her videos are always very interesting, and they just grab you by the throat. I think they're really just fascinating. And she's so different. I don't like all of her stuff. Like, I maybe like half of it, but it's so intriguing. Like, she writes like no one else, I feel. The guys from South Park once said she sounds like she's playing songs backwards, and that becomes her melody. And I think that's kind of true. It kind of does sound like that. Now it skipped again. I think we got to get to the end of this, by the way. What about Reaper? I don't know a lot of people that use Reaper, to be honest. For some reason, like, I know a lot of beginners like to use it, so I've never used it myself. I haven't really talked to anyone, I think, at least lately, that uses Reaper. So I don't know. Assad says, does melody matter more so basically he says, does melody matter more than lyrics? What's more important, lyrics or melody? I think melody. Zidaroka7.com says, what's the best microphone for recording vocals at home? The Shure SM7B. Michael Jackson used it. It depends on the price point, obviously. There's so many microphones. And it really depends on your voice too. Like, I really like the Browner stuff. Like, if you're good, but that's really expensive stuff. For a beginner, I like the NT1, which is a microphone that I have here. Or if you're a total beginner, this microphone right here, the blue Yeti, is also great because you don't even need an audio interface. You can just record with your USB port. Yeah. Do you think rock/metal could top the charts again, says Carl Johan Tenstrom? That's a good question. I really hope so. I think the grunge idea definitely is not dead. I don't know if it could be really metal. I don't know, like, not that 80s metal, because a lot of people really hate that, especially pop musicians. Or I know a lot of people who love pop music above everything else, and they really hate that 80s metal sound. So I don't think that sound is going to come back anytime soon. But I could definitely see grunge, a more alternative band sound coming back, like a real live alternative band sound, something like Shut Up and Dance and stuff like that. Of course, I'm working really hard on my English. I guess I'm slowly getting Americanized. Anyway, thank you for the response. Really heartwarming. Oh, that's really nice. Thank you, Carlos. Melodies more important. Okay, so Jummy C also says, I'd say melodies are more important. Melodies are part of the song, but lyrics are the method through which that melody is delivered. You can have melody without lyrics, no lyrics without melody. Agreed. Mikhail Azaturov. Sorry, I'm butchering all your names again. Hi, do you usually approach writing melodies, hooks, song structure, and songwriting overall more instinctively or theoretically? Thanks. Instinctively, but of course, years of studying theory and all of that stuff feed into my instinct. So I have and that's something you can read in a lot of books on how instinct and creativity works, because there's a lot of studies that have been done on this, how creative people work and how geniuses make decisions. It's also the same, not that I'm a genius, but like that's how it says in those books. Geniuses make decisions mostly instinctively, and instinct, research finds, is when you have studied the thing so much that you just know. You don't have to like think about it anymore, you just know. And that's how chess masters win their games often. I mean, they study all the moves, but then they just play a lot of them. And that's how it works in music too. You study it for years and you're really in the subject and you become a master at it. And then you just kind of let go and just write. And I find I'm really at my best when I don't think about music theory, when I really just focus on getting an emotion across, on telling a story. That's when I find I'm at my very best. Could you break down the songwriting techniques of Lady Gaga, says Samson. She's such a phenomenal writer, and I'd love to find out more about the way she writes her songs. By the way, I enjoyed your video on Taylor. Thank you very much, Samson. Yeah, Lady Gaga is an interesting artist. I mean, she uses a lot of... maybe I should make a video about her someday. But what I can say right now is that she uses a lot of one-note melodies, and her sounds are really crucial for her. Like the sounds of the production are really important for her. Like that's what gives her that kind of 80s, 90s flair, while still sounding modern because it's so hi-fi. Yeah. Jovian says, I can't figure out Ableton either. I'm fine with it now. Like I think I'm slowly getting the hang of it, but it was tough in the beginning for sure. Richard Kraft says, how do you choose the right key to start on? With the keys again. I'm only asking because originally when we start on a piano, we favor the keys that are easiest to play, but now with computers, we can play in any key. It's funny because last week we talked so much about keys, and I never really think about keys. A lot of my pieces are just played on the white keys, or maybe like in G or in D, like with very few black keys in it. So I don't really think about that too much. It's just like fooling around on whichever instrument you're on until you find something where you're like, oh, this is kind of cool, And usually I don't change the key after that. I only change it once we get to the recording. Anyways. Can the melancholy songwriter write totally positive, hard-hitting songs, says HK. Yes, I think so. But it's difficult if you don't feel it. That being said, I've also had it where I wasn't in the greatest of moods, and I just knew the techniques that I had to use in order to get a happy song, and that made me happy. And then it was easier to write something happy, because if music is the easiest way to change someone's mood state, right? At least from my experience. Not that I read research on that anywhere, but that's from my experience. So yeah, if you write something happy, it might make you happy, and that creates a positive feedback loop. So I guess, yeah, I think it's possible. Funkworm says, I'm so happy to hear I'm not alone about Anthony and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Yeah. It's funny because I had a discussion with someone, with another producer, and his favorite album is Stadium Arcadium. And I told him that. I was like, I just always felt like the melody lines they're just not up there. They're not at the same level as the rest of the band. And he was like, no, it's great. It's the best album ever. And then like a couple of weeks later, he came back and he was like, you know what? I noticed it now too. Once you said it, I was like, oh, you know what? The melodies really aren't that interesting. Again, not to put anyone down or anything. I mean, they're a huge fucking band, and they are amazing, right? Really like peddling with my last piece of wood here. Do you listen to guitar virtuosos? For example, Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson, Tommy Emmanuel. Sometimes, but not in the background. It's more like sometimes I'm on a trip where like I'm on YouTube and it's like the same thing. Like some people like to watch cats, and sometimes I like to watch just crazy stuff. And so I watch stuff like Marble Olympics or what was that thing? Juggling. There's like juggling boxing or whatever it's called. Like I just end up on these videos. I'm like, how the fuck did I get here? And with the crazy players, people that play two guitars at the same time, left and right, that stuff I just usually end up in the very same kind of attitude. So there's some that I really, really love. I mean, there's Steve Vai's Tender Surrender, I still think is one of the greatest videos on YouTube. It's fantastic playing. This is like a really musical guitarist, and he doesn't, I feel like he doesn't overdo it. Like it's still very musical what he does. It's super cheesy the way he like does the stroke back of the hair when he does like just the hammer-ons, and I love it. I just think it's so cheesy, but I love it. Brownie says, how can I focus on the genre of my music? I keep on changing as time flies. I chose rock, pop, electronic, yet every album sounds different. Thanks a lot. Well, rock, pop, electronic is kind of all genres almost, right? So maybe you should niche down a little bit more and think more about like what do you want your prevalent sound to be? Do you want to be a rock band that has some pop and electronic influences, or do you want to be a pop band that has, or like a pop artist that has rock and electronic influences, or do you want to be an electronic artist that has some rock and pop influences? Like the more you niche it down for yourself, the easier it's going to be in the studio when you're like deciding on which synthesizer to use, right? Or which sounds to start with. If you want to be a rock band, then it might make sense to start just with a band setting and then add the synths later on, but have like a core. The core of your arrangement should be the rock band, and then the other stuff is just like touches here and there. Like the Deftones, for example, are a band where you can clearly hear it's a rock band, and they have a guy who does just synths and stuff like that, but it's always just like it's the cherry on top, and you can hear that it was written after the fact. Like the band wrote it together, and then that is the cherry on top, and it's what makes the band, gives it a very unique sound. But you can hear that was like an afterthought almost, really good afterthought. But it was, I feel like you can tell from the writing that the rock band is really the core of it. And once you figure out what your core is, I think your genre is going to get more clear. I just made my first business decision for my music, says Megan Amokazi. It feels so strange. Oh my God. Well, congratulations. I know it's super, super weird. It's super weird. Tori Amos is fascinating to me. She creates an incredible atmosphere in her songs, says Mark Horse 66. True. Like Tori Amos a lot too. Winter, a really good track. How do you determine the appropriate song form to support the intended emotion message of the song, says LWJ Music. The addiction formula is really everything I've ever wanted to say about song form. So your answer is probably in there. That's really all I want to say about that, because the addiction formula is so full of stuff on song form. Like, I don't ever want to talk about any more about that, I think. Sorry. Can't understand modes. Any tips on that, says Assad Shezed. That's a really big question. I don't know if I could explain that in a short answer. I feel like that's something I should make a course on or something like that. So I don't even know any good books or videos on it, unfortunately. It's something that I kind of just figured out on my own. I mean, the theory is out there, but just how to use it is something I had to figure out by myself. Louis Sapiola says, hey, you've been here before, right? Welcome back. How should I ask for a collab with another artist to gain exposure? What if their level is below mine? Thanks. Well, in the beginning, you kind of don't. Unless your music is really strong and you show it to them and they're like, wow, this is great, we have to work together. There's almost no way to do that unless you're friends or something like that, or you're really well connected. Maybe you have something to offer him. Maybe you have like some, I don't know, distribution, production, something deal that could benefit him as well. That might be a possibility. But mostly it's probably going to end up, like your best bets are probably working with artists that are probably kind of at your level, and you both help each other to like slowly nudge each other up a little bit. So it's difficult in the beginning, and I've tried. Sometimes it's possible. Like some artists are like so big that they're like, oh, we can have anyone, and we'll just help that band to grow even further, you know, or like to grow, like someone that no one has ever seen before. We love that band because they're so unique. But it always starts with you have to be unique and crazy enough for like a big act to actually book you as their opener. Hamlet Arana says, what's your main instrument, the one you're most proficient at? Would be guitar. I'm an okay singer, but the guitar I studied that for 2 years in conservatory, and then I stopped because I wasn't that good. And I realized that I'm that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to write. How do you stop your song from being too repetitive, says Megan Amokazi, also someone who's been here before. Welcome back. I don't know. It's never something I really think about. I mean, there's these little shifts in rhythm that I like to do, where I maybe change a note. It's small things, but repetition usually is very good. Okay, I'll answer 2 more questions. We've already been going for almost an hour. So 2 more questions. Do you believe the best songs are written fast? No. I think the best songs are usually written out of an emotion, and that can be very immediate. So that being said, no, yeah, I think so. The best songs are written out of emotions. And if it's a really immediate emotion and you're really good at putting an emotion down quickly on paper, then yes. But I'm sure there's exceptions to this as well. And last question. Let's see. I'm going to read through a couple of questions and pick the one that I like the best. Oh, shit, it jumped again. Happy Ron says, thanks for your great products and insights. Any plans to have another sale soon? Yes, Happy Ron, tomorrow actually, because tomorrow's Halloween. There's going to be another sale. And I think it's going to be 30% on everything again. So that I don't count that as a question. That's a great song title. Some people like to watch cats. Love it. From what part of the Netherlands are you, and what genre do you make? I used to live in Enschede, which is in the east, but I'm not Dutch myself. I'm German, and my genres are like I write a lot of different music, but mostly at the moment, oh man, it's really a lot of music. I did film music, electronic music, rock music in the beginning, grunge music, pop now, a lot of pop at the moment. Oh wow! Please put a donate button so we can donate on live chats to you. Thank you to thank you. That's okay. Well, if you're asking for it, I might think about that, but that's really sweet and kind of, no, I don't know if that feels weird. I don't know. That feels really weird. Should I do that? I don't know. What do you guys think? A donate button? Feels like that's strange. Not to put you down, of course, HK. I just like, I don't know, like I love doing this. Like this is fun for me, you know. This is not, I don't consider this work. Like this is, for me, it's a conversation with songwriters. So that's where I started this whole thing, because I love doing that. All right, let's see if there's any other songwriting related questions that we could end on. Okay, last question. Peter Wolf says, this ties nicely into what I'm about to end with. Do you think ear training is worth time spending if your main goal is to become a good songwriter? Yes, it is, because I'm releasing a 30-day challenge on ear training pretty soon. No, but it's not just a plug. Yes, ear training is extremely valuable. And I think the best ear training is just to listen to music really deeply. As I said, like listen to it over and over again. If you like the music, just keep it on repeat. And you're going to hear things that you never would have thought you would be able to hear, right? You listen to music very differently if you hear it on repeat, right? Because songs get, like the initial thing that you liked about the song gets boring. So you have to go a level deeper in order for it. You want it to keep you want it to keep it interesting, and so automatically your mind goes deeper because you're like, oh well, this one thing that's at the top of it doesn't interest me anymore so much. So let's go one level deeper and see what's going on there. And once you figure that out, you go one level deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's kind of how that works. So that's the best ear training I've found. And for me personally at conservatory, I didn't do ear training at all before conservatory. And I had to like learn it for my entrance exams. And I learned it fairly quickly because I had already trained my ear. I just didn't have any words, any names for all the things that I knew. It was still a lot of work. Like it's, figuring out how classical ear training works is still something that you're going to have to practice. It's not something you can just do, even if you've listened to music for a long time like I had. But it definitely helps. And I think it's ultimately, it's more valuable to just really know how to listen to music properly. And I might actually make something on that as well someday, like maybe a course or maybe a YouTube video or something like that on how to really properly listen to music and to really show you guys what I listen for in music. Maybe that will be an interesting video. Cool. Jesus. Take the cash. Yes, do it. Or a Patreon. It would be like Twitch if you added a donate button. Exactly. Although I've never been on Twitch, so I wouldn't really know. Take the money. Yes, do a donate button. Wow. Okay. Huh. Interesting. Okay. I don't know, guys. Donate button. Maybe I should put in a donate button, and all the money I make from that, I donate to like for a good cause or something like that. That sounds like something I would want to do. Should we do something like that? Would that be cool? All right, I'm gonna be in the chat for like another minute before it automatically closes up. Where can I buy your hoodie? I don't know. I just made this for myself. There's not an official store or anything like that. But should I make a store for this? Do you guys like this kind of stuff? I also have, just to show off here, I also got this, which is also pretty cool. And on the other side it says, "Still thinks John Mayer is a Berklee graduate," because I said in the artist series video that he was a Berklee graduate, and I get comments about that every day that he's not. And that was really embarrassing. But yeah, do you guys think that's cool? All right. I want to show my respect, and donating is a good thing. Wow. That's really nice of you guys. I gave up cigarettes, take my money. That's cool. Did you read my last comment? Says Antonio Grifoni. I did not. Was it here? Like, was it in the live chat, you mean? Oh, there it is. I've had interest from Sony UK, Island Records in New York City, no offense, but I'm not paying you $69 for a video review. Is there a personal email I can reach you on? I'd love to hear from you and just connect. Sorry, Antonio, but I mean, I have a lot of shit to do, so I mean, $69 isn't that much. Like, there's people out there asking $500 for a song review. So I think $69 is all right for, and I mean, I'm doing this for free, so now that feels kind of wrong too, to give something like that away for free. And it's an hour-long feedback video that I do, So that's a lot of work for me too, to analyze your music. But anyways, wait, guys, this is really cool. I want a mug. Okay. Oh, you just don't need a video review. Oh, gotcha. All right. Well, all right, just send me an email then. I mean, you can sign up to my mailing list under the video. There's like a link where it says, "Want my most popular lyric writing tool for free." There's a link. Once you sign up to that, you'll get the lyric writing tool, but you'll also have my email, and then you can write back to that. And yes. Cool. Well, Julie, it's almost done. Like, we're already like way over time. We're almost 10 minutes late already. So cool, guys. Am I frozen again? No, I'm not. I was just holding still. Hope you enjoyed all of this, and I shall see you guys again next week, I believe. This was, again, fun as always, and if you want, I would, of course, appreciate it if you download my free songwriting tools under this video. Look how cool this looks, right? I've been spending hours on this thing just to make this look kind of okay. And also, like, subscribe and follow. Wait, which way do I have to look? Down there. So you can subscribe and follow on Facebook and Twitter. I'm not on Instagram, or I have a personal account, but not anything for holistic songwriting. or take one of the pro video courses. And you can do all of that at the little I up here. So just click on the I if you want to take one of my courses. Cool. All right, guys. I had a ton of fun, and I shall see you again next week. Take care. Bye. I would wave my hand, but I know you wouldn't see it. So cheers.